Hey everyone, it's Atticus Analysis, and today I want to do a deep dive on FTAI. I'm going to be spending a lot of time talking about FTAI and their Strategic Capital Initiative, or SCI. So before I get into that, I kind of want to do a little background on why this new business model that they have is so important. So just taking a step back, what is FTAI? What do they do? FTAI basically has two businesses. They do airplane parts, maintenance, and repair for the engines primarily, and then they also do airplane leasing. And you can see that these two businesses kind of synergize with each other. If FTAI owns an aircraft that's leasing out to others, then it kind of guarantees that that same airplane will have its engine, maintained or replaced by the FTAI parts division. But there's a problem in the amount of profit that they can make from this. Now, FTAI is not a large company. It's a $12 billion company. They have done well with their parts business. They've used, some efficient business models and 3D printing and other technologies to go from something like nothing to last year 5% of the overall airplane repair market globally. So they've done well, but there's a limit to how many airplanes they can buy with their own money to actually impact their own engine business. It's just not really practical. What would really be nice for FTAI is almost like if they were owned by an airline, and then the airline would then take their own planes to FTAI's business so that they could have a constant stream of customers instead of only getting a customer by competing with other repair companies when some third party needs an airplane to have its engine repaired. But you can't have FTAI owned by an airline because in that case, the airline wouldn't want to repair its competitors' airlines. So it's kind of in a pickle. How do you have access to a huge number of aircraft that only you can repair without actually being an airline and without actually having to put up the money for buying them? Well, enter the SCI, which is sponsored by Apollo, among other financial giants. What if instead of FTAI just being a company that leases aircraft, FTAI was the manager of a fund for large institutional investors to invest in leasing out aircraft, and FTAI would have its airplanes that way? Want to know how this works? Let's take it away, CEO.
At the beginning of this year, our objective is to be able to invest $4 billion through that partnership, which effectively translates into owning about 250 aircraft. As part of the arrangement, FTAI Aviation will do all engine maintenance required for those aircraft in that partnership through engine exchanges. So if you think about the math of that, it's 250 aircraft comprises about 500 engines. Roughly 20% of those are due for a performance restoration or a shop visit every year. So that's 100. If we do an engine exchange, and each one of those generates roughly today for us about $2.5 million of EBITDA, that's $250 million of EBITDA from the new partnership that goes directly to FTAI Aviation. In addition, we'll get paid a management fee for running the partnership, being the general partner, and we'll own 20% of it. So it allows us to build a customer that is 100% committed to engine exchanges and to accelerate our capture of market share via that method, and to potentially do a new partnership every year, so that the cumulative effect of that would be very major and make us the largest owner of narrow body aircraft in the world.
That's a really good overview, and you can clearly see that the strategy is working. From the earnings call that happened just a few weeks ago, the CEO is saying that the partners financially want to be repeat investors for the next few rounds. That means that they could own 1,000 planes soon, which would give them a huge amount of impact on the overall market. With this extra cash, the CEO wants to lower the cost of debt, then announce some share buybacks. And lastly, I wanted to just briefly say that there is a huge opportunity to open up the market in China, which is very underpenetrated. So, despite all this good news, despite the fact that the SCI is a really innovative new financial model, and it's clearly working, and the company is crushing estimates, the stock is basically flat year to date. And in fact, the stock's well below where it was when short sellers hit it earlier this year. The short sellers basically alleged that, oh, okay, the company isn't really profitable. It's just moving assets around to create the appearance of profitability. Now, that's an interesting charge you can level at a company when it isn't profitable yet, because thanks to things like amortization or the like, when you're not profitable yet, that charge could carry some weight. But once you actually start posting real profits, which FTAI is finally doing this year and is projected to massively increase next year, saying, oh, well, they're just making one business asset, look better at the expense of another, it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't matter how FTAI is classifying the income. They're clearly profitable. They're clearly becoming more profitable very quickly. So yeah, it's no surprise to me that the short selling reports are basically meritless. FTAI actually hired a third-party forensic legal team to investigate the entire company's books and said, the conclusion of this third-party audit was the short seller claims are entirely without merit. So yeah, but that did leave kind of a black cloud around the company for a little while, and it still hasn't fully recovered despite all this good news, despite the fact that the company's model has been proven correct. And I think that is because people aren't paying that close attention to it. Maybe they saw the short report, just decided that they wouldn't trust the company anymore, and they're only going to check back later. So this, I think, just creates kind of an opportunity. Now, what's also interesting to me is that the analysts aren't even necessarily appreciating the full growth story here. If you look at these numbers, it says that FTAI's revenues are only going to grow something like 19% next year, which would be the slowest that they've ever grown. It says that their profits are only going to go up 37%, despite the fact that they have this amazing new business model. So the average analyst isn't really paying attention, but some of them are, including this one firm, Benchmark, which gave the stock recently a $300 price target, saying that this is an inflection point. This report proves that the new business model with the SCI makes sense. And this isn't just some random guy with some small firm. That's not what this is. Josh Sullivan is one of the best analysts in the world. In fact, his track record shows that he is number 12 out of 10,000 analysts. So I think his opinion does merit some amount of respect, and he is, I believe, the street high analyst for this particular name. Now, you can kind of debate exactly how much each amount of earnings is going to be worth when you play around with valuation models yourself. You can say, okay, what are the margins going to be? Margins are going to improve, but how much? How long until FTAI has to spend a little bit of money adapting to the next generation of aircraft? What's the competitive space going to be like? Is there going to be a drop-off in travel? If there is like a global pullback, those are all good questions. But in my opinion, you don't really have to worry about any of those questions at this particular point. If the stock was $200, then we could start quibbling about that. But the stock is, again, well below where it was just in January. So clearly the inflection point is basically being underappreciated. Why is it being underappreciated? I think the answer is obvious, that this business model is a little bit complicated. It's never been done before. And so it takes a while to understand it. It took me a few days to really wrap my head around how genius it is to create a way to create kind of captive access to a bunch of planes without having to actually buy them. That is a really genius idea. And again, I think people didn't necessarily want to give this company a second glance after they saw the short reports, but they will. And it doesn't matter even if they don't, because again, once that free cash flow starts coming in and they're able to turn on the buyback spigot, then The company doesn't even necessarily need institutions to get completely on board. They can use their own cash to make this stock into a real winner for shareholders. So yeah, I'm looking forward to appreciating until at least $200. That's my like short-term price target, and hopefully after that we'll get some more clarity on when the SCI 2 is happening, uh, and we'll go from there. Thanks for listening.